Cthulhu's World Profile. Come to the website of EP1-10 to read more of my works. Youth Pig Head Youth. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In 2103 AD, due to the influence of Japanese nuclear wastewater, the world was filled with dangerous nuclear radiation factors, and human genes were extremely prone to mutations. People are warned to take a small white pill called Cthulhu every day to prevent human gene mutation and harm future generations. If not taken, people often experience mental exhaustion due to genetic mutations. People will see a false world, flashing red shadows, and even in severe cases, they will see the sun turn into huge eyeballs. Tall buildings are built amidst flesh and blood, with dirty things flowing through every pore. Su Yan is a high school student studying at Hengqing No. 1 Middle School. She spends 18 hours a day and only needs 6 hours of sleep. Although it is a painful academic journey, as long as you wake up early every day and take a pill, the day will pass like water, which is very enjoyable. Doing homework attached to the desk is already everything for students from kindergarten to high school in this country. We don't need to worry about anything, just lie down on the hard table and enjoy this wonderful 18 years. As for the goal, it is to lead others, but since everyone does this, naturally everyone goes from one starting line to another high starting line. The path to getting into a good university is not just that simple. Whether you take medication to meet the standards and whether your attitude towards taking medication is sincere will directly determine the efficiency of your efforts. When you meet your medication standards, high school teachers give you a trusting look, and classmates give you admiring looks. They think to themselves, "I'm so stupid. Why didn't I take more medication back then?" Su Yan is a student of this first high school. As he passed by the newspaper column, he skillfully glanced up and saw a unique piece of content. Attention, a mental patient escaped from Qianshan Psychiatric Hospital. The patient has not taken Cthulhu tablets for 3 consecutive months, which is extremely dangerous and highly contagious. The picture clearly shows a very beautiful and cool girl, who looks about the same age as Su Yan. There is also a character introduction. Name Su Xiaoxiao, gender female, wearing a white rough hemp psychiatric suit, a pair of fox earrings. The patient's mental state is extremely abnormal, thinking that he is the reincarnation of the fox demon Su Daji, posing a strong threat. After discovery, please call the Hengqi police station at 123x and take 2 Cthulhu tablets every day. Don't take too many, or you will suffer from mental disorder caused by strong radiation. You should be fully responsible for it. Also, please adhere to taking medication. The rest of the news is that John, a British man, insisted on eating Cthulhu for 138 years, and now his longevity has broken the Guinness World Record. John said he is very hopeful to continue eating for another 100 years. After the death of the eminent monk, his body burned 18 glazed relics. It is reported that the eminent monk often took Cthulhu tablets during his lifetime. Scientists have proved that in addition to resisting radiation, Cthulhu tablets also contain a variety of strong factors, especially promoting the development of students' brains. The state has invested 150 trillion yuan to speed up the research and development of Cthulhu tablets and optimized the production capacity. It is reported that the existing tablets in China can guarantee the supply of the whole people for 200 years. Even in wartime. Su Yan then walked into the teaching building and decided to go up to 6 in the morning. The entrance was pitch black, and Su Yan's eyes flickered as if she saw dirty blood stains crawling all over the building. Especially in the garden under the teaching building, the calm figure of the girl running faintly reminded him of the cold and beautiful girl in the newspaper column, who looked like a big star. However, he felt extremely uneasy, his feet swaying and his eyes pitch black. "Damn it, didn't I just take my medicine last night?" he thought, then took out a small pill from his pocket and skillfully stuffed it into his mouth. He felt much more refreshed, with the warm golden light pouring down from the newborn sun. Coincidentally, at the entrance of the teaching building, on this chilly spring morning, he looked so cute. He walked into the classroom feeling refreshed, and compared to his lackluster classmates, he was clearly refreshed. The teacher called all the students up and mobilized them before morning reading. After speaking, everyone took out the pills they had prepared in their pockets and hummed comfortably, "Praise the only true God in the world, Cthulhu." The teacher stood in front of each student with a smile and saw them happily swallowing the pills, looking satisfied. But Su Yan couldn't take out the pills. Damn it, he thought that if it weren't for the back of the girl in the garden making him feel uneasy and seeing the world of mental disorders, he would never have taken the medication early. When he explained it to the teacher like this. "That means you can't take the prescribed pills at the time I set," said the teacher Ling Jun, as if a judge in court had sentenced him to death. But, teacher, he didn't have time to argue, so he was picked up by the teacher and pulled to the back, receiving a heavy slap on his mouth. Su Yan let out a whimper, tears almost streaming down his face. He obediently grabbed his ears like a rabbit and was carried to the garbage dump behind him by the teacher. "You can only take 2 pills a day, but how dare you tell me you used them in advance? Only 5 minutes earlier, that's the entrance to the building." Su Yan dared not cover her swollen cheeks, as if she had been scalded by a hot funnel. "Only 5 minutes, fortunately, only 5 minutes early," the teacher's voice became hysterical, as if roaring from the abyss towards the outside world. "This is not a matter of 5 minutes at all. If everyone were like you, 5 minutes in advance, without paying attention to class discipline, would I still be taking this class?" The classmates were too atmospheric to breathe, staring at Su Yan with a group of warm and cool rabbit-like red eyes. "At night, ask your parents to send me a video of you taking medicine." The teacher coldly glanced at him and then stuffed a pill into his pocket. "This pill is different, it's green and feels sticky to the touch." Su Yan's face was covered in a feeling of blood, but under the action of the earlier pills, there was no sensation. "I'm doing it for you, and it's also for the good of this class, you know." The class teacher patted his shoulder. "After all, if you don't take your medicine on time, then 18 years of hard work will be in vain." "Thank you, teacher." Su Yan breathed a sigh of relief, but fortunately, the teacher nodded in satisfaction and didn't forget to care. "Su Yan, take this green pill tonight and remember. Make sure to send me a video. A pill can make up for 3 meals in the morning, middle, and evening, while keeping people working tirelessly." With the help of the pill, Su Yan walked from one end of the line to the other and spent the day lying on the table for 18 hours fulfilling. On the way to the late bus, Su Yan saw a cold and handsome beauty. Although the mask covers most of her face, just the fox eyes revealed on the side can still tell that she is a stunning beauty. So he glanced more. The beautiful woman seemed to realize something and glared at him angrily. Zhaozuiyuan.com. Surrounded by the dim night, Su Yan only felt the beautiful woman with a faint black object on her head, with a crescent-like arc. Curious, that face seems to have been seen somewhere before. He thought strangely in his heart, but the side effects of taking the pills also came with it. His only desire now is to go home quickly so that he can take the green pills early. After getting on the car, Su Yan was surprised to find that the beautiful woman was sitting right in front of her. On the turbulent bus, admiring the figure of the beautiful woman in front, he was disappointed to find that her chest was flat and she looked out without any obstruction. However, the peach buttocks can still be worn, and although the front is not concave, the back is raised. "Don't you think life is strange? People seem to be missing something," an ethereal and poignant voice came from the front. "Strange, what does that mean?" Su Yan froze for a while before realizing that it was the beautiful woman in front who was speaking. Her eyebrows furrowed lightly, revealing a melancholic aura. "Do you think it's normal to take medicine all day on such days?" The beautiful woman spoke to him nervously. "I know you're normal. In my hazy dream about history, I saw you. I knew I was a fox demon, so I smelled the smell of the same kind and came to find you." Su Yan discovered that the curved object that couldn't be seen clearly in the dark was actually a pair of fox ear ornaments that could be mistaken for real. Although there was no wind, it still trembled slightly. This beautiful woman is clearly the mentally ill Su Xiaoxiao mentioned in the newspaper. Su Yan was about to stand up when she was tightly pressed down by those jade arms. Although full of the touch of warm and soft meat, Su Yan is not in any mood. He only has the palpitations of being infected and suffering from psychosis after gene collapse. Dreaming Beauty Girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The cold and beautiful girl pinched Su Yan's lips with 2 fingers and said apologetically, "Although this behavior is rude, I apologize. Luan, my sister will save you." At the same time, he quietly used his luck on Su Yan, so things would go much smoother. She also doesn't dare to use too much, after all, she still needs to save some for emergencies. Su Yan's face turned into a duck liver color, and he felt the immense power of iron pliers gripping his 2 fingers, making him feel powerless like a duck with its mouth pressed down. "You are my younger brother, at least for a lifetime, and the taste won't go wrong." Su Xiaoxiao took a satisfied breath from him, feeling a little disgusted, and said, "But why are you so ugly in this world, and are you just taking medicine and looking silly?" Su Yan widened her eyes. Without a doubt, the mentally ill person in front of her inexplicably changed into a new outfit, put on a mask, and after falling ill, she mistakenly thought she was her younger brother named Luan. But what infuriated him even more was her tone of disdain for his appearance. What was going on? "I, Su Yan, didn't think I belonged to that kind of fresh meat, but I still belonged to someone who was a bit handsome." Although being surrounded by beautiful women like this was an opportunity he never wanted in his life, he thought of the 4 words written in the newspaper as a great threat. His heart froze, and if he had known, he wouldn't have taken another look. Perhaps he happened to be in the midst of the onset of this mental illness. He looked sympathetically at the beautiful girl and found that she also looked at him with a sympathetic and intellectually disabled gaze. "Don't you think I look familiar?" The girl spat out a faint blue aura and asked him with ill intentions. At the same time, she lifted her mask in front of him, and her fox eyes fluttered lightly, revealing her bewitching face as if from a ghost story to reality. A gorgeous female ghost is trying to drain a man's young energy. "Of course, you're familiar with it. Aren't you the mental illness I saw in the newspaper this morning?" Su Yan cursed inwardly. Strangely, his body was particularly weak, and he couldn't even speak after being grabbed by the girl's lips. Then the girl withdrew her hand, but he still stuttered, his words only swaying in his mouth and unable to speak out. "I'm sorry, I used my ability to luck to imprison your mouth, but rest assured that I only used a little bit of luck, so there won't be any discomfort in your body. But if you continue to resist and want to report, you will definitely feel a bit uncomfortable. For example, due to my lucky ability being passively triggered, you may unfortunately have dislocated your chin due to the jolt of the bus, and it hurts so much that you can't speak. But there are absolutely no side effects. Don't worry, I won't harm you, so I take back my ability. You can speak up, but you absolutely cannot report, otherwise you will be unlucky due to my luck. Do you understand?" Su Yan nodded quickly, realizing that she could speak and was about to shout out, "One had a mental illness," and he was about to say that when suddenly the car bounced onto a huge rock, causing a violent shaking. Su Yan's head happened to hit the hard roof of the car, and his teeth involuntarily bit down, right on his tongue. The pain made him burst into tears and almost runny nose. Su Xiaoxiao looked at her cheap younger brother with a pitiful expression of idiocy. "Didn't I say that? You'll be in big trouble because of the passive trigger of luck ability." Looking at Su Yan's persistent expression, Su Xiaoxiao couldn't help but cover her head. "You keep working hard. Every time you talk to a child who takes medicine and is foolish, you feel a sense of helplessness." Suda scratched the fox ear on her head irritably. "If you have mental illness, stop quickly," Su Yan said as the bus suddenly came to a sudden stop. He couldn't help but kiss forward and happened to kiss the girl's eyes, which seemed to speak. All the people talking on the bus suddenly fell silent, creating a deathly silence that felt like a vacuum. Su Yan was thrown into the quiet sky, and now his posture towards the charming girl in front of him was clearly looked up by everyone underground. In this deathly high altitude, Su Yan instead fell into a state of contemplation, a tranquility of social death. The people on the bus were all staring at this moment, their eyes filled with terrifying murderous intent, and their lips moved, each pair of eyes widened and said, "Why can't it be my turn to do such a good thing?" Without a doubt, they all instinctively knew that Su Xiaoxiao was the most beautiful girl seen on the bus, and also the most beautiful girl seen in the city. If Su Xiaoxiao took off her mask again, they would think that Su Xiaoxiao was the most beautiful girl they had ever seen in their lifetime. Su Xiaoxiao blinked shyly, but quickly. Su Yan suspected that the madman who ran out of the mental hospital was intentional. Because she quickly put on a sad and angry expression, "There's a pervert," she screamed, even confidently pressing Su Yan's hand onto her chest. The voice was so loud that Su Yan simultaneously said, "I have a mental illness." By comparison, so insignificant and ethereal as smoke, like a fart popping out of its mouth, so, everyone in the car saw his hand in the girl's awkward position. That girl is still very beautiful, even though she is wearing a mask, she still has a clear and noble aura rushing towards her. If she took off her mask, she would be the most beautiful girl in the city. Despite her high and cold appearance, her coldness and handsomeness elevated her beauty to a height that even enthusiastic mountaineers risk falling off a cliff to conquer. They naturally imagined the excellent squinting boy riding on the unstable vehicle, quietly extending his thief's hand to take advantage of Su Xiaoxiao, let alone Su Xiaoxiao pretending to be ashamed and innocent. They have hatred and disgust towards Su Yan's behavior, and even a hint of envy mixed in. You don't want to," Su Yan was furious and even a little stuttered. "Blood spurts out, even if I touch it, you can still park the plane if you're so poor." "What can I touch?" It is obvious that all the bus people, regardless of gender, want to slap him to death. Another moist girl from the same school gave him a contemptuous glance. While she recognized Su Yan also recognized her. Done, he felt very sad and angry in his heart, giving priority to losing the right to choose a spouse for 3 years. "What's wrong, daughter? Do you want to take him to the police station?" the driver asked indignantly, grabbing the steering wheel and changing the course. "Uncle, don't worry, I'm so sorry to bother everyone because I'm alone." Su Xiaoxiao tightly grasped Su Yan's arm, never letting go, like a stubborn little beast biting its nipple and never letting go again. "Uncle, just park here and I'll take him to the police station," Su Xiaoxiao said, using luck on the uncle who had a Mediterranean sign on his head. It seems that the uncle is very unwilling to stop midway, but fortunately, after she used up 1/3 of her luck, the uncle's persistent gaze hesitated, and his hesitant expression calmed down. His angry eyes fell into a calm confusion. "If it weren't for the thought of picking up my daughter from kindergarten, I would definitely have taken her to the police station." Su Xiaoxiao noticed that it was already 10 p.m., but it is normal for kindergartens in China to have evening self-study until 11 p.m. "Don't worry, he can't handle me. I'm a black belt," Su Xiaoxiao said confidently, pinching Su Yan's thin arms and legs. Su Yan realized that she was quickly thrown off halfway by the driver, with Su Xiaoxiao beside her, looking at her with interest and a possessive gaze, as if he was a piece of luggage she had taken on a trip. "I'm really your sister," Su Xiaoxiao said to him, touching her pretty earrings and talking nonsense with a serious expression. "Look, these are my ears." Then he earnestly caressed the air above Su Yan's ears. "These are your ears. I know you can't see them, but it's okay. In your eyes, I have earrings on my head. Don't touch my earrings, otherwise I'll take them off." Su Yan felt a feather scratching his heart, allowing this beautiful lunatic to caress the air above him. Of course, this sentence could only be muttered to himself in his heart. He lifted his whole body and came to Su Xiaoxiao's face. He knelt down with a thud, his knees on the ground, thumping loudly. Zhaozhuan.com, Sister Su, I said I won't report you anymore. I'll just pretend I didn't see you and let me go back, okay? Okay, what are you doing? I won't stop you. I will never tell anyone that I have seen you before. If I say that, I will. Su Yan paused and thought for a while before saying, I will go to the palace on the spot. You can see. I have had enough bad luck today. First, I took the wrong medicine in the morning and was punished by the teacher. Then, I had to send him a video of taking the medicine at night, and I had to wake up early tomorrow. If I were to be detained by you tonight, I wouldn't be able to go back. If I don't take the medicine these days, I won't be able to. If I go back late at night, my parents will beat me up. Now that the bus has left, I can only jog home with my backpack on my back. Su Yan said pitifully on purpose, trying her best to squeeze out a few tears, only to have a runny nose. He looked out with great joy and felt incredulous, so much so that she obediently and gently said, good, at first, but he still explained a lot. Until she repeatedly said, what are you doing? I won't stop you. He still didn't understand why she had to put in so much effort to get him down and easily let him go. Perhaps this is a mental illness, he muttered to himself. You curse at me, I can hear you, you can curse in front of me, but don't curse in your heart for being spineless. I see it's uncomfortable, Su Xiaoxiao said. A chill suddenly spread from his heart to his coccyx, and he ran away in a random, icy manner. So much so that I didn't hear the next words, but I don't blame you, I know you don't want to do this either. You're crying even more sadly than I am. That voice was ethereal and poignant, faint in the night sky. The world is harmed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Yan charged forward without looking back, his lungs rustled, his mouth was whipped back and forth by Feng Shuili's whip, and a line of thin sweat oozed from his forehead. Until the female lunatic was completely invisible, he gasped for breath and ran all the way back home. However, recalling the gentle feeling he had touched on his arms, the warm and flowing sensation of water, he still felt his second son straighten his body in drip water. He forcefully pressed down on the dishonest guy with his hand, and cursed after extinguishing the fire, a dishonest guy. After arriving home, Su Yan glanced at her watch and fortunately, there were still 10 minutes left until 11 o'clock, enough for him to brush his teeth and wash his face. She then went to bed at 11 o'clock on time. Mom and Dad, I'm back. He shouted to the house, but my heart felt a little uneasy. In the window of my room, the lights were on, and there was a figure hanging there. The face shadow was long, and Su Yan could imagine a foot-long white silk, a broken neck, and a red, miserable tongue longer than the white ridge. He felt a long-lost sense of security as he touched the blue pill in his pocket. Xiaoyan, I'm back. My mother opened the door and mechanically repeated this sentence. It has been the same sentence for 18 years, even without adding ingredients. There is still a lot of ingredients. She stared at Su Yan with her protruding eyes numbly, but as time passed, her eyes became more prominent, and her white eyes solidified like a ball of tofu residue. Xiaoyan, when washing your face and brushing your teeth, keep your voice down. Dad sat on the sofa and said that sentence every day for 18 years, lying lazily on the sofa, always watching the same channel of TV. Su Yan went upstairs with a thud, going up every day for 18 years. After finishing his toiletries, he lay on the bed and realized that the lights were not turned off. When he hurriedly turned off the lights and lay on the bed, he skillfully turned over, closed his eyes, and fell asleep in the side-lying position he had been in for 18 years. He smelled a faint fragrance through his nose, and the tip of his nose touched a soft lump. He stood up in fear, rubbing against it. There was a person sleeping beside him, a girl with a pleasant smell like a faint orchid. At this moment, he suddenly felt at a loss. The world of 18 years suddenly changed and collapsed. First, he was beaten by the teacher in the morning, then the bus caught him like a pervert, and finally, there was not one person on the bed, but two people sleeping. Every morning, without exception, he took his medicine and read early on time. On the bus, he arrived home quietly and peacefully, then lay in bed and fell asleep alone. But now everything has changed, and a huge sadness has descended on his heart. This is like a precision machine, with a slightly invisible screw rusting and corroding inside. Then the machine had a devastating problem, causing it to explode with a loud bang. Now Su Yan's peaceful heart is on the brink of explosion. "Don't be careful, it's me, Su Xiaoxiao, your sister." A familiar voice and a wisp of fragrance came in my ear. Su Yan's face turned white in an instant, and he shouted loudly. His seductive fox eyes, not to mention turning into ashes in the dark, shone brightly in his heart. They suppressed all the jewelry in the world, giving him an inexplicable feeling that could be recognized. "I have mental illness." This shout must be very piercing, because he saw several nearby lights coming out in fear. His father strode up the stairs with great strides and rushed up, holding up his 8-foot wrist. Now he finally shouted out, and he smiled triumphantly. His father's palm, which was as big as a fan, struck hard, and then he fell to the ground with golden eyes shining. "What are you talking about? Look at how scared your mother is." Then his mother walked up slowly in slippers and looked at his father's success in lifting the palm of the family and leaning back, which would make him unable to stand straight for a while. "You have mental illness, according to the newspaper. Su Xiaoxiao is in my bed," Su Yan muttered to his mother for a while. Without any courtesy, his mother slapped him on the other face, rewarded him, and poured his empty words into his stomach, as if sinking 1,000 pounds. "Insert your waist and say, 'Look at how scared your sister is,' and then look at your dad slapping her." When he saw his mother pointing at Su's novel, "Your Sister," Su Yan ran into a roaring train in his mind, but only the tail gas from the train's buttocks came out of his mouth. He felt that a thunderbolt in the sky gave him a look. My sister." His mother said rudely, and the spittle that he said made a sound. "Isn't it? You're 18. Old sister, your mother and father's biological daughter, we can admit our mistake and blind your dog's eyes. Hurry up and go to bed. If you don't go to school tomorrow, your sister will have to go to school. Finally, close the door tightly, leaving Su Yan staring at Su Xiaoxiao." Su Xiaoxiao took out a slightly moldy blanket from the closet and spread it on the dirty ground. "Sister, what's that? My little brother is blind and forgets you." He looked at Su Xiaoxiao diligently laying a blanket on the ground and stopped her behavior, saying, "I'm so sorry, this blanket hasn't been washed in 3 years, it's so dirty. How about it?" He pointed to the small bed, but felt embarrassed to say, "Let's squeeze together." "So this is what I'm giving you," Su Xiaoxiao said calmly, as if it was a natural thing to do. Seeing the bewildered expression on Su Yan's face, Su Xiaoxiao's cold tone could freeze him from his lower body to the tip of his hair into ice shards, waking him up. "I sleep in bed, you sleep on the floor." Her sarcastic gaze on taxes seemed to say, "What are you thinking, little brother? Okay, you're my sister. You're older than me, you're in charge." Su Yan lay awkwardly on the moldy blanket, her face swollen like a pig's head, and she was content to think that at least there was a bed to sleep on. It was so fragrant. "I said, did you get beaten up?" Su Xiaoxiao looked at the pitiful pig head face on the floor, lost in thought. "After all, you were." "Before," she said, feeling sad and unable to continue. "Sister, I was born with this harmless appearance of humans and animals. Others can tell at a glance that this person is wise but foolish, looks like Panan, and has an unlimited future. Have you forgotten?" Su Yan rubbed his pig head face and smiled, as if someone else had been slapped 3 times for no reason in life. He was mocking that person fiercely there. "I'm not your sister," Su Xiaoxiao changed her tone. "My mom said you're my sister now, why are you saying no? Do you think your mother said I'm your sister and I'm your sister? Isn't this a natural thing? My mom said it, you said it too, and my dad agreed. Why aren't you my sister? What about you?" Su Xiaoxiao said very seriously. "What did you say? What's your opinion? Why didn't you speak?" Her eyes were moist, as if she could speak, reflecting the scorching radiance of the sun. As soon as Su Yan thought of lightly kissing this pool of water, he became intoxicated and flew away. He was randomly pressed hard into the soil and stepped on the mud by himself. What were you thinking? He laughed at himself in his heart. You're not him, not him. That ethereal and poignant voice sounded heartbreaking. That pool of water stirred up the wind, uncontrollably submerging its cold and stunning appearance. Su Xiaoxiao cried. But I don't blame you, nor do I blame him. I know you and he are even sadder than I am, becoming like this person who never lives or dies, tormenting and trampling on themselves in this world. The way you look now, I am even more determined to do what I want to do. Although I only remember a little bit, and although my strength is not even 1/10 of what I used to be, let alone a little bit of his fur, as long as I see your appearance and his appearance, I will risk my life and cannot spare those guys. Those guys. Those old days. Suddenly, a flash of lightning struck outside the window, and the piercing thunder frightened Su Yan. She covered her ears and lay weakly under the bed, then stood up in confusion. What did you just say, sister? I also took medicine, so Su Xiaoxiao suddenly collapsed on the bed in great pain, covering her heart as if she had been hit by a bullet. Su Yan looked at Su Xiaoxiao's mental illness. She had fallen ill, and Su Yan smiled with relief. After all, she was a lunatic. He doesn't know why he wants to be happy, the shell of happiness is empty. She was lying in bed in excruciating pain. She didn't make a sound, but her soul was howling. Her body was so sore that it stretched like a bowstring, 3 zhang high from the bed. Her wrists were stiff, and the veins on her hands were almost twisted off by the blood on her feet. Then she slammed into the bed with a loud bang, collapsed on the blanket, and lay down in agony with sweat. However, she didn't let out a muffled groan. However, there was a poignant and pleasant smell rising from the bed. Su Yan grabbed the blue sticky pill and filmed a video, preparing to secretly send it to the homeroom teacher by Bai Ji. This way, if his parents didn't know, he would be able to save himself a beating. He couldn't help but feel happy for Bai Ji's talent. At the moment when he was about to take the pill, his hands ghostly snatched it away. He couldn't bear it, his blood was trembling with panic, and he cursed at Su Xiaoxiao, "You bastard, you get sick when you get sick. Why are you taking my pills? Do you want me to become like you?" Su Xiaoxiao smiled and collapsed on the bed, leaning back and forth. You finally dare to curse out loud. Some words can be so uncomfortable to keep in my heart. If I don't resist, I'll be left to be bullied. Anyway, I can't resist like this, it's so painful that I'm powerless. I can still feel a little more comfortable doing that kind of thing with you. That laughter was cold, full of ridicule and mockery, hollow yet filled with rocks. You're crazy, you're a mental illness, you're not my sister, you've deceived my parents. I know I want to say, I'm a person with no temper, I'll give you all my bed, just ask you one thing. I just want to take the college entrance examination well, I don't want to meddle in your affairs, don't come to me, let alone you. I advise you to take medicine every day, don't say anything that shouldn't be said, return the medicine to me now, I'll take medicine to perform well in the college entrance examination, otherwise the teacher will hit me tomorrow. If the teacher slaps you, can't you slap him twice? Whatever force he uses to slap you, you'll give him twice as much back. How can he have the power to slap you? He's not slapping his own face, Su Xiaoxiao said, pouring out a bucket of beans. What? Su Yan gasped for breath as she held on to Su Xiaoxiao's tightly clenched hand. I'm not like you. That's how you got into a mental hospital. Give me the medicine. If you don't want to live, if you want to die, give me the medicine. I want to live. No matter how damn I live, I'm still alive. I still have a bright future, as long as I live. I don't have to say, I know that's how you went to the mental hospital. You're a lunatic and sick person. Su Yan reread each word and sentence, and the 3 deliberately prolonged tones of mental illness made him feel a pathological pleasure he had never experienced before. Su Xiaoxiao thunder slapped him lightly on the face, which was lighter than the first 3 slaps. On his heart it was heavier than any slap in this life, like a meteorite hitting the earth, causing the decline and extinction of old creatures, making room for new species. Some people are dying of illness and don't want to take medicine because that kind of medicine can make people forget how they got sick. With a wave of her hand, Su Xiaoxiao shattered the blue pill and disappeared into the thick night. No, Su Yan looked at the chaos outside the window, his eyes pitch black and almost fainted. I will be beaten to death by the teacher. He couldn't control his impulse to jump down and die for the pill. Come and find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to sleep with me. As long as you promise me that you dare to resist tomorrow, I will give you a day and treat it as dog day. There was a rustling sound of undressing in the room, and the moonlight adorned the beautiful body of the young girl with a silver border. Her extremely beautiful and noble face, like an iceberg, was rarely blushed with shame. The air is filled with a fragrant scent of hormones. Su Yan stared foolishly out the window, turning a blind eye to everything in front of him. He was disheartened and almost on the brink of death, while his second son had a high fighting spirit. The pillar of his fate is about to fall. He wants to sacrifice himself for this pill, but his second son wants to be a dog. Finally, he lay on the floor with a swollen face, looking both like a pig and a dog, neither like a pig nor a dog, neither as good as a pig nor as a dog. He didn't go downstairs to look for pills or go to Su Xiaoxiao's bed, so he buried his head in the blanket. When Su Xiaoxiao was getting dressed, he didn't even have the intention to peek at the naked body. When he found that he couldn't sleep and didn't have any time to sleep, he cried bitterly, but at the same time laughed and scolded, as if the person crying was not himself, but someone else was laughing laughingly. You're really not as good as a pig or a dog, he said angrily in his heart at this moment. A very ethereal and poignant voice pierced through the night sky, yet it was in my ears, heartbreaking. After using my luck on them, I ran out of my last bit of luck just now. You see, you don't even have the courage to kiss me anymore. But you'll dream and remember. At this moment, Su Yan felt snow droplets falling on his lips in the darkness, then melting away. Just as he was about to taste the water temperature, the snowflakes quickly disappeared. At the same time, his body also sank to the bottom of the sea, surrounded by dream-like foam. He slept with a wounded world and 4 slaps on his face. Genius Su Xiaoxiao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Yan, do you choose A or C for this question? Su Yan quickly stood up from the desk. The test paper on the desk was already wet, and the residue on the corner of her mouth was still moist, hitting the test paper drop by drop. The tiny sound of ticking and ticking seemed to be audible to all the teachers, making him mentally disabled with deep glasses. He thought to himself, indeed, they all heard it. The whole room resounded with loud and deafening laughter, just like cheers. Only Su Yan's desk mate, his sister Su Xiaoxiao, didn't smile. It has been 3 months since Su Xiaoxiao came out of the mental hospital and continued his previous studies in high school, sitting with him. He looked at his sister's exam paper with a pleading gaze, full of bright red hooks, and a huge 150-point mark jumped into his eyes. Now he no longer wanted to seek help. When he saw the glaring perfect score, his heart was filled with sourness. Instead, he mustered an inexplicable courage and went straight ahead, choosing between 2 without any hesitation. Choose. A burst of laughter echoed throughout the room. Su Yan's face turned red again and she said, choose C, choose C. The laughter not only did not decrease, but it became even more deafening. The dust on the roof jolted down and landed on Su Yan's already disheveled face, as well as his classmates who opened their mouths like trumpet mouths, filling their empty bellies. Su Xiaoxiao pursed her lips and tugged at his sleeve, saying, the teacher didn't talk about multiple-choice questions, he was talking about composition. He deliberately asked like that, knowing you didn't listen. Chen Gongping taught them English and was also the homeroom teacher of Hengqing No. 1 Middle School. During his lectures, he respected the belief of cultivating the human brain into a computer. Su Yan stood up, Chen Gongping didn't let him go. He was left hanging there, but later found himself blocking the view of people behind. He folded him up like a piece of clothing and threw it next to the trash can behind him. "Teacher, my stomach hurts." Su Xiaoxiao suddenly raised her hand, and the whole class's gaze was focused on her. She held her stomach and gasped for breath, like a small knife cutting through the heartstrings of the whole class. "Okay, would you like to take a break?" Cheng asked fairly urgently. "No need, I feel sad sitting there. I just need to stand for a moment, and I'll go to the back to avoid disturbing my classmates." Su Xiaoxiao stood confidently next to Su Yan with the test paper. Su Yan held the 142-point test paper in her hand and saw Qin Gongping staring at him with a light bulb eye and a needle-like gaze pressing towards him. Consciously moving towards the garbage dump, Su Xiaoxiao's farting was more convincing than his oath of risking his life. He was the apple of his parents' eyes, while he stayed in the garbage dump afraid of being noticed and was kicked by someone. There was no way he could understand this truth. He understood it when he was a child. He was born with sharp-tongued monkey cheeks, a slender figure, and an extra fifth limb that looked like a turtle's head. A pile of rotten meat was squeezed between his legs, and he would never stretch it out no matter what. Unlike his sister, who was born pure and pure, with a small ceramic mouth that was cute with every breath, deep eyelashes, and big talking eyes. "I can only say that I am missing a few pieces of flesh all over my body, but I appear even slimmer and more lovable." So the hospital nurses were both startled by the ugliness that Su Yan was born into, and the beauty that Su Xiaoxiao was born into. Undoubtedly, the benefits of the latter far outweigh those of the former. After school, Su Yan undoubtedly went into Qing Ping's office to drink tea. "What's wrong? I'm lucky. I got 142 points on one test, and then I fell second in the class, right?" Su Yan is timid and silent. Since he has not taken the white Cthulhu pill, he has been in poor spirits for 3 months. He sleeps at 11 p.m. and gets up at 5 a.m. Anyway, he understands everything the teacher says, so he wants to take advantage of the opportunity in English class to catch up on his sleep. "Who's sneaking around outside?" Qin Gongping stared at a pair of light bulb eyes, and Su Xiaoxiao drifted over from behind the door. Qin Gongping's eyes instantly smiled happily, becoming 2 pairs of crescents, and his tone became much more soothing. That teacher wouldn't like Su Xiaoxiao, a genius with perfect grades in her field, who is good-looking and has a sweet voice. Her peers blindly admire her, and those children like this kind-hearted sister who speaks gently, beautifully, and generously. The elders have high expectations for such students. These 3 types of people together, hand in hand, form a circle that can reach the waist circumference of the earth. "It's Xiaoxiao here, just right. You come over. Do you know what time your brother went to bed last night?" "I don't know, but after taking the medicine with him, I immediately went to sleep." Qing Fairy's remaining anger remained unresolved, and he spoke fiercely. "Su Yan, what strength do you have? After taking the exam twice, you can relax in my classroom, but it's not asking you to be reckless. Look at your sister Su Xiaoxiao, and then look at you. She's the first in the family. Is she proud? Do you know why you got second place in the exam? It wasn't because of the extracurricular tutoring class that you were brought in. Su Xiaoxiao fell ill and stayed in the hospital for so long. He did better than you on the exam. Is he proud? Did he sleep? Su Xiaoxiao scored 150 points on the exam because the paper only scored 150 points. You scored 142 points on the exam because your level was only 142 points, you know. Suya was speechless. In fact, every class he attended was sleeping, and the rest of the time Su Xiaoxiao studied, he would study. If Su Xiaoxiao didn't study, he wouldn't study. Watching Su Xiaoxiao's bright red fox tail proudly sweep outside the pure black JK skirt. Since he hadn't taken his medicine for 3 months, he had truly seen Su Xiaoxiao's delicate and small fox ears, which made him want to hold them and play slowly, as well as whether his tail suddenly stirred. Zhaozuiyuan.com. Once, he thought it was his own hallucination, so he lightly touched Su Xiaoxiao's mischievous tail. The soft fur was like caressing a cute little fox, and then he pulled. His sister, who was in class, suddenly turned red and said she had stomach pain. She quickly covered her stomach and ran all the way to the bathroom. After class, he fiercely asked Su Yan why he wanted to pull her tail. He didn't know that the tail was the most sensitive part of his body. Firstly, Su Xiaoxiao imagined that she had a tail. Later, Su Yan not only saw the tail, but also touched it. Finally, I gave it a satisfying tug. That's great. After not taking the medicine, I also became mentally ill. Su Yan thought sadly in her heart. Su Xiaoxiao, what's up? Cheng fairly and pleasantly asked the teacher about the obedient girl in the eyes of her parents. Teacher, my parents usually wait for my brother to have dinner together, so can you give them a call and tell them not to wait for my brother? Today is Friday, which happens to be the school's monthly vacation once a month, but Su Yan is not too happy. Why did she give birth to Su Xiaoxiao after giving birth to me, Su Yan? Su Xiaoxiao's face turned pale, but her tone was one of concern for the homeroom teacher, which was very pitiful. Well, Su Yan, you go back first and don't sleep in class in the future. Although you said that, you came second in this exam, and the teacher really deserves to praise you well. Cheng Gongping thought for a moment, then handed a document to Su Xiaoxiao. This campus rule was memorized by the students in private, and then he set it on fire. By the way, if you don't take medication, be careful of the door. This is much more terrifying than this piece of paper. Cheng's fair words were as light as the wind blowing over, fleeting in an instant. Su Xiaoxiao hesitated for a moment and randomly bowed to Cheng, who was working at his desk. The Eerie Campus Rules. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The radio reminisced with pleasure as an old screw was about to crumble, a product from 2013. However, in the schools and the slums, it was still an old antique that could be repaired and used. In 2103, people's science and technology achieved great development, productivity greatly developed, but were plundered by the bourgeoisie. 1% of people in this society hold 99% of social wealth, while the remaining 99% create 100% of social wealth. The lives of the people in the slums are still the same as those of the common people 100 years ago. The difference is that they take pills and are threatened by radiation. At the same time, artificial gene editing technology and machinery increase the lifespan of the human body to 200 years, but at the same time, it also creates class monopolies and closes the channels for class transition. The radio started ringing, with a sizzling electric sound mixed with a pungent smell of dust. In the gray walls of the classroom, the campus rules on the radio were about to be played. After not taking the pill, he became mentally active, his brain opened up, and his mood was happy. Before he started writing questions, he couldn't reverse 10, but now he can easily do it. In recent exams, he has made significant progress. To be honest, he hasn't even realized that he has such an excellent brain. Looking back now, from 6 in the morning to 10 in the evening, brainless practice, knowledge is like blind flies flying in from the left ear, arching the nerves in the brain, pulling out a few slippery yellow spots, and then flying out from the right ear. When a person has their own light of thought, now knowledge is like watching the silent starlight on the dark night sky as a child, trying to touch and light it with a small candle in their hand. The more starlight they come into contact with, the brighter the lamp of life becomes, and the more they can feel how dark their world is without sunlight. The darkness around them accumulates and presses down, forcing people to pursue light. Of course, compared to Su Xiaoxiao, who had a perfect score in the door, he was still the same idiot as before. The reason why Su Xiaoxiao got a score of 150 on the exam was because the paper only scored 150 points. He went from a score of over 80 to over 140 because he could only get a score of over 140. The cold mechanical sound accompanied by a piercing mechanical sound leaked out from the rusty iron mesh of the recorder that had long been covered in rust. The students who took the medicine remained indifferent, smiling blankly and working on the same question at the same speed. Su Xiaoxiao complained, false benevolence and false righteousness. Su Yan said, I know what you mean. The school wants to be both a bitch and a memorial archway. However, his heart stirred up an indescribable wave of excitement due to the long-lost vacation, tapping his suddenly enlightened forehead. This is a non-existent school rule, but please remember it to every student. If someone shows their love to someone who is not in a romantic relationship on campus, please immediately report to the Academic Affairs Office and stay away from them, as they are no longer your classmates and you will not see them the next day. No takeout food is allowed on campus. The only source of food is the cafeteria, which does not sell red meat. When eating red meat in a meal, or when seeing black hair or insects, please silently recite in your heart that you are eating vegetarian food and your hair does not exist. Also, pour out the food and serve a new bowl. The 3 holidays are real, with weekends off. But you must arrive at school at 6 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday, and attend evening self-study on time. If you encounter undercover investigators wearing suits at school, please keep repeating that the school starts at 9 o'clock and ends at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. There is no homework at night. After they leave, please immediately report to the Academic Affairs Office and remember that evening self-study is not allowed, and classrooms are not allowed before 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. There will be no black water flowing out of the 6 faucets. When you see black water, please keep repeating it to others. The water is white and coffee is flowing out. Remember not to come into contact with black water. Please persist in taking pills every day, otherwise you will see a strange world. Repeat, you must take medicine every day, otherwise you will bear the consequences. When you think you have a classmate named Li Hua, remember that there is no classmate named Li Hua in the country. Please take the medication immediately. There are fake rules among the 10 or more rules that do not need to be followed. Sure enough, the previous second was off, the next second the bell rang, and the vacation was over. Su Xiaoxiao sneered and said to Su Yan, what's going on? After not taking the medicine, do you feel uncomfortable? At the same time, she pinched Su Yan's finger towards the medicine under the table pocket. Cheng Fairy walked in again, with a big and approachable smile on his face. I believe after a short and exciting vacation, students have all finished their homework, haven't they? Su Yan saw a short and small white hair braid quietly extending from the crotch outside Teacher Cheng's pants. Upon closer inspection, there is a shiny sheep tail, and upon closer inspection, the teacher's large and approachable mouth gradually becomes thinner and sharper, with 2 cheekbones protruding in the middle and concave on both sides, the nose turned into a black, round ball, embedded in the protruding face. Although the black hair was brushed and pulled out in unison, revealing the pink and tender skin, it was clearly a large and ugly wolf mouth, slanted and protruding, but inside it were exposed sheep-like molars that only grazed grass, shining brightly white. Su Yan saw her classmates around her propping up pig ears the size of a cattail fan, accompanied by the sound of wolf mouths, making contented pig calls. After the wolf left, he brushed his head and buried it on toilet paper, drooling and yawning. He looked at his originally agile and glowing palm, but now it was a pale pig's hoof. He looked for the book garden www.zhaosuiyuan.com, where rough white hair hung all over it. He couldn't help but shout, but let out a humming pig. Only Su Xiaoxiao, not a pig, not a sheep, not a wolf, but herself, a charming and passionate fox. Wearing 2 pairs of beautiful fox ears, trembling slightly in the windless classroom, a sweet and plump peach that was about to burst into juice slid out of it, with a fiery, bright red and passionate tail that was so fluffy that it felt comfortable to touch. The pale lamp cast a dim and blinding glow, and in the darkness, her beautiful and charming face became even more charming. Her jewel-like eyes shone brightly. Su Yan knew that he had not taken any medicine and violated the 7th rule of the school rules. When he saw a strange world, he unexpectedly saw himself transformed into a pig and his teacher into a sheep with a wolf's mouth. His hand groping for the pill was grabbed by Su Xiaoxiao's slender and powerful arm. "Have you seen it? Have you seen the real reality? What did you see?" Su Yan asked nervously, but let out a growling pig. "I have hallucinations, I need to take pills." However, Su Xiaoxiao's hand pinched his greasy pig trotters to death. He despairingly discovered that Bai Ji was locked in the fence like a pig, unable to take out the pills, just like eating and drinking must be in the same place. Su Yan couldn't help but miss his somewhat handsome face. He dared not look directly at Su Xiaoxiao, the beautiful girl sitting next to him. In his imagination, the gaze pierced into his now ugly pig face, gouging out pieces of high-quality white pork with pink fur. Su Xiaoxiao showed an interested expression and carefully manipulated it with her gaze. "Reality, you are a pig, but you live a life that is not even as good as a pig." The Eerie Door. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Yan threw Su Xiaoxiao's hand away and opened the white medicine jar. What made him particularly frustrated was that it was empty inside. Su Yan held up his hungry pig nose and sniffed back and forth in the jar, finally drooping his head in despair. "What a cunning and lovely fox you were once and now, little brother. The most handsome, ugly, cunning, innocent, cruel, sunny, and gloomy fox in the world." Su Xiaoxiao whispered to his pink and tender ears the size of a fan. "I love, hate, envy a fox with a distinct personality the most. However, in front of your enemies, you appear as foolish and incurable as a pig, but when they relax and discuss fattening you before killing you, your strength will be accumulated. You are even stronger than a lion, even more cruel than a wolf. You swallow them into your stomach, even chew and crush their bones, causing them to fall into your belly and never be able to turn over. 3,000 years ago, you were the hero I most wanted to marry, and also the most disliked bastard. However, in fact, you are now protected by those pills. Look at your pitiful appearance of feeling uneasy. I still think I haven't taken any pills and have been mentally disturbed by radiation. Those who protect you also trap you. Don't be foolish. I am mentally ill, but I believe the only difference between me and a normal person is that I dare to admit that I am sick and never feel inexplicably surprised because I stand out among a group of pigs. Remember that those who protect you also imprison you. A towering tree can help you block the wind and rain, but it also makes you invisible. It's okay to pretend to be a pig at the appropriate time, don't completely turn your heart into a pig. What do you want to do, Su Xiaoxiao?" Su Yan looked at Su Xiaoxiao, but was watched by this crazy person with a crazy gaze. "The light and darkness in front of me were intertwined, and my classmate soon gave birth to pig ears, revealing an ugly and strange pig tail. My eyes froze, and I screamed loudly. Fortunately, it only lasted for 1 second, and the illusion in my eyes disappeared completely. The next second, the students became full of youthful vigor and vitality, like the sun at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, indulging in the test papers covered in the afterglow of the setting sun. The sound of brushing questions drowned out the entire classroom. Su Yan felt a splitting headache, and the strings in her mind were stirring tighter and tighter, cutting through her imagined fat pig brain, with strands of yellow-brown, red and white fishy smell seeping into her nostrils. "What are you doing?" She licked her bright red lips and smiled maliciously. "What do you want me to do? Sit on you, okay?" Su Yan glanced fearlessly and said with a lack of interest, "I'm not a plane, I insist on stopping at your place." Su Xiaoxiao's playful expression suddenly froze, as if a fly had just flown into her mouth. Then, with malicious intent, he started whispering in a low voice, "Brother, do you know the only difference between yourself and a pig? When a pig is tired, it will move back to its own nest and secretly sleep in, while when you are tired, you only know how to drink a cup of coffee before moving on to the next question. Of course I want you to see a more real world." Su Xiaoxiao's lips leaned over. "Even if you're a pig, you have to show some ambition to be the most independent pig, right? How far can you see with these eyes now? I'm curious. Su Xiaoxiao licked her bloody lips. Su Yan could smell the wet and sweet taste of saliva. Why don't you learn to speak like my favorite Itachi god? Itachi god? Su Xiaoxiao became puzzled. Naruto, have you heard of it? Sister, you really have to break away from the trend of the times. Su Yan looked at the expression on the old hat, causing Su Xiaoxiao to be momentarily stunned. The recently released anime. Brother, you're not a child, competing with 2 or 3-month-old babies to watch cartoons. The children in their kindergarten know that they spend more than 10 hours doing homework every day, preparing for the college entrance examination early. You are not doing your job properly now. When you grow up, not to mention marrying a wife, you won't be able to save your life in the family. Su Yan covered her head with a helpless expression, enduring her sister's scolding. What they watch every day, such as Makabaka, Baba Baba, anime, Naruto, is different. Yesterday, I watched it with Mr. Wang, who is 100 years old downstairs. That old kid Wang Xiaoji. Su Xiaoxiao's ears twitched as she suddenly remembered the panting of non-existent women coming from downstairs every midnight. Sister, he changed his name to Wang Laoji as early as 2090. Why do you still call him Wang Xiaoji? I don't care. Before the age of 3, I called that old boy Wang Xiaoji. If you and I had to adapt to him, there would be walls on all sides and no way out. Su Xiaoxiao thought of the voices of non-existent women that often appeared in the old Wang family and became wary. Did you see a movie where 2 people were fighting? How can it be satisfying to have a fight between 2 people? It's all a village fight, and then people from all over the world gather together to fight against one person. That super strong person is called Madaha, who directly runs away, grabs his pants, and masturbates, leaving everyone in the world lying down. Su Xiaoxiao stared at her cheerful brother strangely. Powder blusher on both sides was slowly spreading, and even the tip of her nose was tinged with faint blush. She let out a long, trembling voice, and suddenly raised her fingers. Su Yan immediately reflexively covered her face firmly, with 2 dark eyes staring at Su Xiaoxiao's angry face between her fingers. Sister, are you looking for Shuyuan? www.zhaoshuyuan.com to exterminate your family with righteousness. Su Yan's bewildered gaze suddenly flickered, her fingers released, revealing a sudden realization. I see, you're trying to get it wrong. After a moment, Su Yan regretted letting go of his hand. He covered his face, which was red, swollen, and smoking, with 10 burning marks clearly visible on it. What is your face made of? Su Xiaoxiao wiped her hands with a look of pity on her face. So hard, my hands hurt so much. Su Yan covered her face and buried her in the desk like an ostrich, complaining, you're not pure yourself, you blame me. But where the leaves fly, fire also grows endlessly, and the will of fire will never yield under oppression like this. So, you still have to go see it during your vacation, right? As long as you can survive inside the door, anything you see is fine, and I don't want to worry. Do you know the door, brother? Su Xiaoxiao opened her pants and revealed a snow-white piece of jade foot. However, black foot cuffs were sewn on the jade foot, and the rough black threads were ugly scars crisscrossing, bringing irreparable scars to the exquisite human art. A exquisitely crafted diamond-shaped glass block is embedded in the handcuffs, shimmering with a yellow-green glow. Do you know why we need to take medicine in this era? Due to nuclear radiation, if people do not take medicine, chromosomes will be punctured and the human body will melt. In this era, people always die from various genetic mutations. But another thing you don't know is that drugs make chromosomes more stable. Drugs protect you, but also limit you. Remember, I told you that those who protect you also limit you. A towering tree can shield you from wind and rain, but it can also keep you dark. Untitled chapter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chromosomes are broken down by gamma rays, which means the genetic lock is opened. By constantly taking medicine to resist radiation, it is like pouring molten iron into a lock hole. While thieves cannot enter your home, you will never be able to leave again. What you get is a decaying safe house, but what you lose is the whole world. The correct way is to step outside the door and embrace the whole world. With the opportunity to unlock the genetic lock, evolve into a superhuman existence. Su Xiaoxiao caressed the rough scar on her ankle, and her limbs once again felt the pain she had imagined, like another periodic tide. Through the memory behind the first door, she stayed on the bright and spacious hospital bed, even with the air conditioning on, but she felt no wind at all, the heat was unusually hot, and she could hear the rustling sound of water leaving her body. Surrounded by a bright and blue surgical cloth, she could only see the doctor's blurry face in a white coat. The silver needle carries a dark and eerie protein thread, making a rustling sound as it passes through the bone. The pain of each thread is like a rib being ground to pieces. The nurse, who was wearing a mask just now and had beautiful eyes and generous speech, wanted to anesthetize her, but she knocked over the reagent and left a fox scratch on her face from her paws. When this ugly device was cleverly installed on her ankle bones, her sweat had already merged into a small stream. At that time, her intense hatred of resistance reached its peak and was bound to burn fiercely, carrying an unstoppable force. Accompanied by the friendly explanation of the beautiful lady wearing a mask, Miss Su, you always don't want to wear ankle rings, after our unanimous condemnation, even though it may harm you, in order to ensure your safety, we have decided to perform this surgery on you. Did my parents agree? Of course, such behavior must be approved by your parents. How much money did they charge you? It's enough to support them for the next life, isn't it? The young nurse did not respond to Su Xiaoxiao's words again. But due to the special nature of your identity, we must do our utmost to protect your safety. You are the hope of our nation and the future of our country. Please forgive us for constantly monitoring your location information in this way. When the crystal above turns yellow, it means your door has already appeared. Be careful of every door that appears around you. We have established a special team of 5 for you, using the device under your feet, and the wisdom of the people of the whole country to coexist with you, helping you overcome future difficulties together later on. This ugly iron lump was forever left on her beautiful and natural leg bones, even though they repeatedly promised that only real-time dialogue and the function of serving as a location landmark would not disturb her privacy in the slightest. It's ridiculous, because the person who was forced to undergo this surgery without illness is not them. They can laugh and say those words that are certain I won't be hurt. The diamond-shaped crystal is thick and yellow, with strands of blood swirling in the center. Red indicates the wearer's mental panic and unease. Very cool thing, her silly brother commented upon seeing it. Sister, you look like a spy like this. She really envies this heartless attitude towards life, foolishly thinking that wearing handcuffs on your feet and worrying about leaving while taking a shower is a cool thing. This gadget definitely has an image capture system, otherwise how could they collect information in the world of doors? Do you think I would thank them? They locked us up and kept us in captivity like pigs. I entered the door without taking medicine, but came out alive, and then I became mentally ill. I know the only difference between me and you is that I admit to being sick, while normal people do not admit it. Put on handcuffs for me, they are violating my human rights and freedom. Don't think I don't know their thoughts, I am just a little white mouse collecting data for them in the world of doors. She thought like this, but did not say these words to her brother. The poor anime brother, who was addicted to Japanese anime 100 years ago, had everything in his imaginary spiritual world, so much so that they reconcile with real life, promote the philosophy of obedience, and feel that they are living well. A person with a gentle and cool personality like a rabbit, and a short ambition like a pig, who only cares about whether they can eat enough today, may be the cruelest thing to let him see reality. She handed the medicine tightly grasped in her hand to her younger brother and walked casually towards the door of the classroom. The last trace of green on the ankle ring dissipated, and the bleak yellow was about to move, accompanied by strands of flowing red. At this moment, the students who had taken the medicine pressed their heads together and closed their eyelids tightly. If you really only want to be an ordinary person for a lifetime, take the medicine and I will enter the third door. If you see me enter, you will be seen by those old days. And you can only enter the door. She hesitated to say these words, and before deciding to let her younger brother see the real and cruel world, she hesitated and hoped to leave it all to her indecisive, kind and cowardly younger brother to decide. It's about taking medicine and becoming an ordinary person in the future, but surviving. Still breaking through the wall, but usually dying on the way to see tomorrow's sun, often just before the bright spring sunshine falls through the corner of her eye, she discovered disappointment and forgiveness, and Su Yan didn't hesitate to put the pill into her mouth. Brother, I love you, but I will never forgive your cowardly and incompetent behavior. With a noble sense of destiny, she opened the door of the classroom. She used to know that this led to the old plastic track in the school, and when the door opened, it could lead to anywhere. It could be a vast world that is not inferior to Earth, or it could be located in a small cabin with an invisible white mist of sorrow outside. She may have come to some alien planet, or even to a world hundreds of years ago. Subsequently, complete an incredible and comprehensive task, all of which have a characteristic of being deadly. The outer gods believe that those who are forced to unlock their genes will evolve on their own under the threat of life. When the lock is opened, the urgent desire for survival is the driving force of evolution. But she doesn't need to be afraid. If those old folks think that they can collect valuable data from the outside world through her ankle rings, these experiences will be sold to those wealthy people who urgently need to unlock their genes. Then they were completely wrong, because the goddess of luck does not always keep a smile on a person, unless she is the goddess of luck herself. She is Su Xiaoxiao, and she controls the ability of luck, which is the key to the problem. Those who learn from me go to hell, as if I die. To achieve fairness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Yan watched as Su Xiaoxiao opened the door of the classroom, walked out, and then disappeared without any reason, not outside the door, not inside the door, simply disappearing, like a drop of water turning into water and escaping from the air. The medicine she handed herself was stuck in her mouth and hadn't been able to swallow it yet. At the moment when Su Yan saw Su Xiaoxiao disappear with his own eyes, he couldn't swallow it, and his fate changed from then on. He suddenly had a feeling of being stared at, a malicious gaze that shone from all directions, and then hit himself. Su Yan vomited out the gray pills, with wisps of muddy white foam, and made a faint hissing sound in the air, breaking one by one. Because Su Yan had a sense of destiny in her heart, after being watched, taking medication is meaningless. He asked himself, it was because he had a slight liking for Su Xiaoxiao that there was a slight flaw in his resolute medication action just now, and he couldn't help but worry and look at the lonely back of that stubborn girl. The combination of the two led him to witness the entire process of Su Xiaoxiao entering the door before taking the pill. The price is the feeling of being constantly maliciously peeked at, that gaze hidden in all the light around it, penetrating everywhere. Su Yan looked around the classroom, hoping to know the source of that piercing gaze. The classmates were all crawling on the table, dragging their handwriting like a dung beetle piling up their own dung balls, just like before. The homeroom teacher Qin Gongping was wearing headphones and staring intently at the screen of the iPhone 15 Pro. This was an electronic waste that had been phased out 50 years ago, but owning an Apple 8 is Su Yan's biggest wish now. However, his parents used the new chips that Su Xiaoxiao bought for them, with their brains plugged in and directly connected to the Internet of Things. With just brainwaves, they could remotely communicate with people around the world who were loading chips. Qin Gongping raised his eyebrows, glanced at him, and said in a mouth shape, "What's the point of being silly if you don't practice the questions yet?" Fortunately, today was not the physics evening self-study, and Su Yan secretly felt relieved. Thinking of the strange temper that teacher Wang Gang would ignite with just a wipe, he suspected that the action he just looked up would make his head fall to the ground. He crawled on the table, trying to focus his attention on the ant-sized handwriting on the book. The fear that surged from all directions made his whole body as cold as iron, and his thoughts trembled like ice. He fell from the exam paper to the ground, becoming a pile of ice. Qinggong Ping noticed Su Yan's pale complexion. He took out a green-gray pill and walked quickly to Su Yan's face. He looked at the green and secluded pill with an iron expression, and as it approached, it completely turned gray and faded, losing its medicinal properties. This means that Su Yan has been selected by them and appears as a new wall breaker, about to enter the door. But for a public high school in such a slum, lack of facilities and experience undoubtedly means death. Did you see your sister's movements when she went out? She disappeared, teacher. I saw her disappear with my own eyes. According to the school rules, Article 11 states that my sister does not exist. Oh, my sister does not exist. Buddha, Sanqing, God, Amen, Santa Claus, my sister does not exist. Please bless me. Calm down, child. Successfully comforted his trembling shoulder and fed him a gray pill, hoping to start working. Cheng fairly patted his throat, kneaded his stomach, and fed him water, hoping he could swallow it. But he vomited out with a whoosh, and tears and snot flowed down his small, red mouth. I feel like I'm eating sticky slugs. I never found them so unpleasant before. You bad kid, you must have not taken any medicine for half a year. Now you are so sick that you are almost dying, and the medicine is powerless. Are you happy? The whole class became restless and looked over with fairness and dignity. What's everyone arguing about? It's almost time for the college entrance examination, and now you can do one question at a time. Words contain no trace of emotion. Most of these gazes are filled with pity and sympathy for this lovely and kind student on weekdays. After all, no one doesn't like this little boy who doesn't put on airs and studies quietly. Do you know why all teachers are so tolerant of your sister? She's such a rebellious and headache-inducing child. When it comes to fair criticism, the homeroom teacher has once again committed his common occupational disease, which is also a common occupational disease among all teachers. He always cannot help but criticize students, but cannot see the strengths that students deserve praise and promotion. I have never taught such a rebellious student before. She could write a book called, My Proud and Rebel Life, and I guarantee to be the #1 fan of that book. Then I couldn't help but say, damn it, your sister ranked first in all her subjects, and even teacher Wang only had one word, fu, for her. When will you give me the first place in the exam? It also makes me feel warm as a teacher, so that I can criticize your sister in front of you. I can't always criticize you in front of your sister. She always takes the first place, and her class ranking is no longer stable. When will you put in a fight and push her down? You can't keep her pushing you, making you the second one. You have to take the initiative to force her. They were all born to the same parents, with similar genes. If you really work hard, you can compete with your sister. Su Yan forced a smile. Even though her life was not long, she still listened to the teacher's chatter. As an elderly middle-aged teacher, he always wanted excellent students to promote each other. Only when he sipped his tea did Su Yan dare to step forward and chat. His behavior is not cowardly, but always afraid that interrupting the conversation will leave a regrettable impression on both parties. I'm sorry, teacher, I don't want to either, but my sister doesn't allow me to take medicine, so I dare not tell you. Su Yan's evasive tone brought Ching Fairy back to his senses from the chatter about future rankings, only to realize that he, as a student, might be on the verge of death. He was still standing up and listening attentively to his chatter. Ching fairly began to reflect on his own mistakes. Hey, that's all I talked about. You've been like this, and I was still thinking about your grades. Those who should come will always come. We can avoid the first day of junior high school, but we can't avoid the 15th day, especially when it comes to cults like doors. He faced Su Yan with a pale face, undoubtedly sentenced to death by fate. But he, the respected teacher in the eyes of the students at zhaoshuyuan.com, is just another salted fish lurking deep in the misty sea, unable to grow strong hands and feet, and throwing Su Yan back into the sea at this moment. Ching Fairy sighed helplessly. In the end, you pack your things and go home now. Let your parents give you some good meals. If you have any wishes or things you want to do, go ahead and do them during this time. Su Yan looked at Teacher Cheng with a frightened expression on her face, as if she had just been diagnosed with advanced cancer by a doctor. In fact, when children from slums enter the door, their fate is often even more tragic than when they contracted cancer 90 years ago. At least in the late stage of cancer today, it can be cured. By the way, do you have a girl you like? Regardless of whether it's okay or not, just go and express yourself, but don't delay learning from others. Su Yan listened blankly to the teacher who had always strictly prohibited early love among students, talking to him earnestly about confessing her feelings to a girl, with a serious expression that was completely different from a joking one. There's no girl I like, I'm like this, and no girl likes me either. Su Yan said these words with embarrassment. Ching Gongping looked at the shy little boy with a mediocre appearance, hiding in the crowd for a long time. Even this time, he took second place in the class by leaps and bounds, and the teachers were indifferent. In his heart, he was both angry and amused. For this lovely boy, the first sentence was face-saving, and I'm afraid the second sentence is the truth. Success Ping tried to comfort him, he is really a poor child. Take it easy, at least your mother and sister care about you. Your sister is very beautiful. He chuckled, as if trying to shake off all his unhappiness, and made a self-deprecating remark. My mother cares more about my sister. I'm not afraid of her bullying me, but I'm afraid she cares about me. First love and love letters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As Su Chen listened, there was actually someone he liked deep down in his heart. If he could sneak a glance from a distance, his soul would be struck and he would never forget it, even if he liked it. A very childish girl with delicate and cute facial lines gracefully steps out of a Rolls-Royce Phantom, surrounded by applause from flowers. However, due to being in school, there was no group of high-quality men around her. He stood at the window on the 4th floor, holding an English book that always stayed on one page. Looking from afar at the lovely and elegant girl like a rose, her name is Yin Shishir, and she is the Yin family that Huawei Yin Jingfei belongs to. He poked his head out of the window and took a second look. Since he felt that the girl's occasional upward gaze was not at the chirping birds on the tree, but in order to keep up with his gaze, he saw the two small dimples hanging on both sides of Yin Shir's mouth, and unconsciously laughed, hoping to respond to her. When he grabbed his hand against the windowsill and took a third look, he noticed that Yin Shir, who was far away from the crowd, was bouncing and jumping, like a fluffy bear waking up in spring, rolling aimlessly in the fields. Make people want to hug, feel the fluffy temperature and the thumping heartbeat only when not being watched. Such a petite and delicate girl will display her mischievous nature. Yin Shishir seemed to notice something and placed a small middle finger just over an inch of his warm and delicious lips, booing in the direction of Su Yan. This girl poses a threat with her middle finger, just like a rose flaunting its thorns, both cute and irresistible. He still wanted to take a fourth look, but just then, the bell for the first class rang. He could only suppress the commotion in his heart and put this fourth look on Teacher Wang Gang's bald head. There's really nothing growing there, he thought discontentedly. Afterwards, during each English morning self-study session with Teacher Ching Gongping, he would open a page of his English book and spend it outside the window. Teacher Cheng looked at this good student who always allows the cool breeze from the window to blow on his face, so that he can learn English better, and his heart was filled with joy. I just heard a joke, said Su Yan's sister Su Xiaoxiao and her female classmate Lin Ling in a tone that was not friendly. Is it funny to hear this? What? Lin Ling immediately stood up the book, staring at her gentle eyes like a big bird. She was a girl with a slightly bird-like face and round and loving lines. I always obey Su Xiaoxiao, the top student in the class, on weekdays. Su Xiaoxiao pouted at Su Yan, who was listening attentively without looking askance. The deaf hear the mute say, the blind see love. Upon hearing this stern joke, Lin Ling pursed her lips and smiled in unison. Time goes back to the present, and Su Yan's mood cannot be calmed for a long time. If possible, he hopes that the remaining time can always be with Yin Shishir. Wake up, no, don't be together, as long as he looks at her from a distance and finds her smiling happily. Just because of that one glance, the feeling of being hit by the soul. The malice is everywhere around us, but the cool and melancholic mood permeates into a thin mist, covering the unfathomable and dense malice. Confessing or having a crush is a question. Is it silently enduring the unrequited pursuit of the arrow stone, or standing up to resist the endless gap, through struggle, accepting greater suffering? What kind of behavior will not make men cry? He thought for a moment and decided to write a letter. Writing a letter won't be as abrupt as confessing in person, allowing both parties time to adapt to each other and reducing the embarrassment of being rejected in person. Thinking of her own death, leaving behind a love letter that made Yin Shishir always remember her. There was always a place in her heart that belonged to her. As soon as she thought of this, Su Chen felt a tearful and fearless sentiment in her heart. However, how to write this letter? Amidst the confusion in her heart, Su Yan habitually looked up at the sun. At this moment, he was stunned and finally knew where the malicious intent, which was as pervasive as light, came from. Malicious like light, wherever light comes from, malice comes from. The original sun was gone, replaced by huge pupils that stretched across the mid-sky. Strangely, Su Chen was about 150 million kilometers away, at a length of 1 astronomical unit. He could see clearly, squinting carefully to form a narrow slit and gazing at his golden pupils. His gaze was like that of a cat with life, playing with a mouse about to feed. And the pupils with crescent white on both sides and a faint golden border. Strange and mysterious, yet noble and unpredictable, Su Yan's thoughts were almost purified under such a gaze that overlooks all things. As the Lord of all things, radiating his gaze towards the earth, the omnipotent light dominates the destiny of all living beings. Su Chen was deeply shocked when he witnessed this spectacle. In an instant, he had an extreme impulse to worship the sun in front of him, and it became increasingly intense. Yin Shishir appeared beside him like a ghost, speaking in a sweet voice in his ear, "Kneel down, you can get everything you want, including me." Until Ching fairly pulled his hair and rudely pressed it onto the test paper, he couldn't help but complain. Looking up every day, what's nice about it? After taking sick leave and going home, what's nice about it? What are you daydreaming about? The excruciating pain on her scalp caused Su Yan to step out of her hallucinations. Su Yan was about to thank her, but was blocked by Cheng Pingping's hand and he murmured. "Don't die in school. I'll give you a special permission to write a letter of guarantee before returning home from vacation. Personal safety is entirely the responsibility of yourself and your parents." Then, holding an antique Apple 14 Pro Max in his hand and wearing headphones, he gracefully returned to his desk. Su Yan pondered how to write this letter. If Chinese teacher Zhang Jinzhen had seen Su Yan's serious expression, he would not have been moved. A student who always slackens off should have treated his essay with such an unwavering gaze, treating it as if he were dead and never giving up. Where is the future of the country? The future of the country lies in this focused gaze. At the beginning, he was eager to write about my rose, but he remembered that he was not familiar with Yin Shishir. Such a title was inexplicable and lacked romance. Yin was too formal in school, adding a damn sense of distance. Shishir is too intimate, like an old father, appearing particularly weathered. Finally, when he crumpled the 5th draft paper, he was exhausted and thought that just 3 words of Yin Shishir was enough. But how is it enough? How can I express my respect and love? So he finally thought of the perfect way to handle it. Dear Sister Yin Shishir, he feels that this is the most beautiful word he has ever written in his life, among which the 3 words Yin Shishir are particularly beautiful and moving. When I first saw you, it was a feeling of soul being struck. I saw the cutest people in the world, the most beautiful cultural landscapes, and the greatest human miracles. At the same time, I increasingly felt the insignificance within me in this greatness, but it was the happiest punishment in the world. He wrote so passionately in the letter that Qin Gongping stomped his feet sullenly beside him, and his good brother Hua Wentao had timely sent him signals several times before. He also completely disregarded it. He doesn't feel fully satisfied with the book garden www.zhaozuiyuan.com, so he needs to continue writing. At that moment, heaven and hell were pressing on me at the same time. The difference was that heaven was the moment of happiness, and hell was the eternity of pain. He wrote in detail in his writing style about the English morning reading. He peeked at Yin Shuejie's past when she went to school, because this was the only time Yin Shishir could possibly have met him. He only had this moment. At that moment, there was no English, nothing in my eye, only love, only you. He wrote passionately, forgetting everything that happened next to him. Although Cheng's fair face was as black as if he had just eaten a mouthful of dirt, he tightened the lines of his mouth and observed the love letter with indifference. Cheng Fairy felt a bit guilty and wanted to laugh. A person like me, a timid and humble person, crossing over the cutest rose in the world, could only watch in vain as others pluck it and transplant it into their carefully cultivated garden, silently enduring the cruel and unjust arrow of fate. But I am about to die, and if I don't write this letter, you may never know that there is a person in this world named Su Chen who once regarded you as the only one in his life, so forgive me and write this letter to disturb you. Even now, I am unwilling to stand up and resist endless suffering. I will sweep away all of this through struggle, because it will definitely bring you trouble. Let this letter express my regret. If you don't like this letter, please burn it and don't make it public, so that I won't receive ridicule from others even after I die. Please do this for me. At the end, he was still unsatisfied and froze. Finally, he fiercely crossed out his signature and wrote 4 cold words with intermittent ink, making the notes not elegant enough and appearing out of place. A dying person. Past in time, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Su Chen grasped the iron blue door handle of the classroom, there was a feeling of helplessness and deep attraction, which was an irresistible desire, just like a human reaching out to the top cover of Pandora's box and already touching the object in their heart. That love letter, however, was confiscated with a fair and gloomy face, and will be covered with thick dust along with all his confiscated books, such as The Three-Body Problem, The Old Man and the Sea, and Jane Eyre, over the long years. A sentence inside left a deep impression on him. Establishing such a society, in which the freedom and happiness of each individual is a prerequisite for their freedom and happiness. For some reason, this sentence always makes one's heart skip a beat. In his heart, he thought dejectedly that he knew from the teacher's stern expression that he believed these books were a waste of time and had no effect on the college entrance examination. He opened the door. Suddenly, the eyes turned pitch black, with a strong sense of dizziness emanating from them. Along with the blurred images surrounding time, the small aperture occupied the entire field of view. The outside of this door should have been a green playground, but now it has become another classroom with mottled wallpaper. The cracked tiles are covered in speckled yellow-brown marks, accompanied by long yellow marks. The seats have been abandoned for many years, and the gray floating dust under the brown sunset beam is clearly visible. The alarm clock in the middle of the blackboard has been running for many years and happened to stop at 4.15 minutes. Is this the world of doors? Su Chen turned around and, unsurprisingly, the original door had turned into a bare wall. Su Chen walked to the iron door of the classroom, gently pushed it, and a white paper strip fell from the crack in the door. Time will always take you forward, no matter what situation. On the white paper, it was written with a faint fragrance on it. Time, decryption. Su Yan pondered for a moment before finally fixing her gaze on the alarm clock above the blackboard. At 4:15 a.m., he went to the tables and chairs in 4 rows and 15 seats, searched carefully, but was disappointed to find nothing. There are 3 possibilities now. 4.15 represents a coordinate, 4.15 represents a password. The focus of the 3 clocks is not on 4.15. The statement that time will always lead you forward must be decrypted from other directions. Su Chen habitually stomped his feet and heard a thumping sound. His eyes lit up with joy, and he lifted his hand to tap on the brick, as well as the nearby floor tile. Sure enough, the floor tiles under the 15th table in the 4th row are hollow, which belongs to the first situation. He tapped with his iron chair legs, and the crisp sound echoed throughout the entire teaching building, very piercing. Dong! 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 The sound of a hammer hitting the cement floor seemed to come from a distance on the first floor and from the staircase. Damn it, that was the sound of something. Su Chen no longer knocked on the floor tiles, and that damn thing stopped, as if thinking. In the end, the thumping sound walked away, as if returning to the first floor. Su Chen's hand trembled and he gently lowered the chair. However, there were no painful or itchy scratches on the floor tiles. If he continued to break the tiles like this, he would definitely be exposed no matter what the unknown existence on the first floor may be, the feeling of disgust emanating from the bones, the unsettling smell and malice emanating from the first floor. The dust seemed to be increasing, and Su Chen couldn't help coughing due to choking. Fortunately, the sound was mild and tolerable. Su Chen looked at his backpack and his eyes lit up. He stacked his coat on hollow tiles, and the feathers inside were like pillows, serving as cushioning material to absorb sound waves. At the same time, take out physics books, chemistry books, biology books, politics books, history books, geography books, Chinese books, mathematics books, and English books one after another from the backpack. The floor tiles are still strong as before. Su Chen was not discouraged. He immediately took out his physics homework, biology homework, political homework, history homework, geography homework, Chinese homework, math homework, English homework, and chemistry homework. The floor tiles began to tremble. At this point, various books were piled up only half a head lower than Su Chen's. Su Chen's eyes lit up as he took out his Chinese, math, English, biology, physics, chemistry, geography, history, and politics papers from his backpack. Finally, the tiles began to crumble, and Su Chen's spine, which had been bent for many years, suddenly relaxed. Not finished yet, he quietly took out the analysis of Chinese textbooks and mathematics textbooks. Just as the English textbook was being analyzed and put down, the floor tiles cracked open with a click. Su Chen looked at the pile of textbook explanations in his backpack with dissatisfaction. I just made a slight move, and you had already reached your limit. Fortunately, the down feathers in the down jacket absorb most of the sound waves. Even so, dong. Dong. The sound was restless under Su Chen's feet. An inexplicable chill rose from the soles of her feet, rising all the way up her spine, and Su Chen's hypothalamus suddenly trembled. The monster below has just been right under this floor tile, waiting for a rabbit. This guy has impressive intelligence and extraordinary hearing. With just a few taps, Su Chen's position can be locked, and he stands at the bottom of the first floor closest to the sound, carefully listening to the movement. It can be imagined what would happen if the monster discovered Su Chen without covering him with a coat. Su Chen carefully grabbed the book with his coat and pulled it out to the side. The floor tiles were shattered, and inside was a whole yellowed, broken piece of paper buried. When Su Chen started reading, it turned out to be a love letter. Dear Li Zisher, the first time I saw you, I fell in love with you. At 2:15 a.m., on the balcony of the school, I have something important to tell you. Yin Tianjin, who loves you. Su Chen looked at the clock towering above the blackboard. It seemed necessary to adjust the time of the watch to 2:15. Suddenly, a headache arose, and even with my height and the highest desk, I could only jump up to reach the clock, which would definitely cause noise. In the world of doors, only dead people will shout and scream. Because you never know what will attract you, Su Chen once heard his young lady evaluate. He had a sudden idea and took off his belt, tied it in a loose knot, and made a simple lasso. He found the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com and stepped on the table, using such a rough rope, hook it into the middle of the clock dial several meters above your head, and patiently tighten the rope sleeve slowly. This is a difficult process, but Su Xiaoxiao is not discouraged. He hooked it 28 times, got it 10 times, but failed 4 times at the edge of the clock dial. The rope slid down from the bottom of the clock and fell to the ground 5 more times. Finally, this time it was successfully fitted and fixed in the middle of the circular watch, forming a strong knot. He gently retracted it, and the clock dial slid down in mid-air with the rope, almost hitting the ground on the surface. He coughed lightly again, observing the amount of dust through the sunlight. The increase in dust was not an illusion, as the amount of dust exposed to brown sunlight was more than twice that of before. Su Chen felt that a considerable amount of dust had accumulated in his lungs. If this continues, the coughing sound will become louder and louder, eventually attracting the monster hovering downstairs. Su Chen quickly pulled out his coat with lightning speed, as the environment here was extremely cold and he couldn't do without it. Newton's first law states that an object always maintains a uniform linear motion or rest without any force. Therefore, also known as the law of inertia, thankfully, the book did not collapse due to inertia. Despite the high friction of the coat, the goddess of luck finally favored herself this time suddenly. Su Chen thought to herself, can't she take the book off her coat and put it on her body? Why foolishly thank Newton instead? He began to reflect and suddenly realized that the reason he did this was because of a simple matter. He spent too much time solving physics problems by flying a chess piece out of a pile for force analysis.